12.
Okay. 12 out of 19 is a good place to start. Okay. Wow, that's weird. Everything is like showing up all cockeyed. Okay, I'm gonna have to check into Moodle again and take attendance later. And there we go, come on, exit out. Hey everybody, welcome back to COM 171, Introduction to Communication Studies, with me, Peg Watts. Hope you're all doing well today. It's Wednesday, hump day, making it halfway through another week. Reminder that we don't have a lecture on Friday, but you do have an assignment due, so make sure you attend to that. If you missed Monday's lecture, it is posted on YouTube, on my YouTube channel that you all have the link for. And yeah, so you can catch up on things there. And speaking of catching up, I hope you're catching up on back assignments. Some of you who didn't get your forum work done last week, that kind of thing. Hope you're taking the opportunity to get that and this week's work done. After this week, we just have 3 more weeks of the semester, so we've got this, guys. We've got this. We could do it. So, all right. Updates, I guess. So the federal government is saying, or they're predicting, they're estimating, the coronavirus experts, that our country could face 100,000 to 225,000 deaths from this before it's all said and done. It's a lot to think about. It's a lot of people. And as you guys know, my family is affected. So my son seems to be doing a little bit better today. His wife is definitely coming down with it though. So they'll have that to try to get through. But my son is improving, and that's good news. And in my sister's group home out on Eastern Long Island, the person in the group home who has the coronavirus is doing fine. Doesn't seem to have a really extreme case. So that's good news because she's also medically fragile, so it's kind of dicey. Everybody else seems to not be showing signs right now, so. And my aunt, who is battling coronavirus and cancer at the same time, is off a respirator right now. So that's good news too, progress, moving forward. I hope everything is okay where you are and you're not having to worry about anyone that you love, and that you're doing things to keep safe and be practical and proactive in keeping yourself and the people that you love safe from this virus right now. Anyway, alright, we have actual work to get to. I'm gonna try to open up Moodle here, and while I do, I'm gonna ask you guys to just post if you're not attendance yet, because I have to open Moodle, because it did something funky weird. Surprise! Funky weird stuff in a time of funky weirdness. Like you guys to post if you have any questions right now about things in class or assignments or stuff that you're not clear about. Now's the time to ask. If not, you could just sit there and watch me open up Moodle, because that's always fun. Here, I'll even turn the screen so y'all could see me do it. It's exciting times we live in. Everybody's online, and it's really hard to get the internet to respond quickly, as many of you have found out. And if you do have a lot of buffering with trying to get this stream going. If the internet's not working well for you, we'll take attendance, and then this isn't responding for whatever reason. So I'm just gonna ignore it for right now and do things the old-fashioned way by paper. Oh, really? Come on. Yeah, close everything. Yay, technology. Are you sure you want to save the changes? No, I do not want to save changes. I just want you to close. That's all I want you to do. Thanks. All right, John, could you hand me my notepad and pen, and I will take attendance, and then we'll move forward. Oh, hey, happy April Fool's Day. I thought about whether or not I could play a joke on you guys, like what would I do, and I'm never really good at thinking of those kinds of things to begin with, but then I thought, well, you know, all things considered with the times and everything, maybe it's not good to punk people. I don't know, just saying. That's my way of thinking of it anyway. Maybe it is a good idea. Maybe you should call somebody and tell them to let you in. You're outside of their house, like right now. Just punk them for April Fool's Day. Anyway, all right, let's take attendance. Tell me if you're here with your name. Say hi.
Destiny.
Hey, Destiny, how's it going?
Alex.
Hi, Alex.
Mariel.
Hi, Mariel.
Christian.
Hey, Christian.
Ashton.
Hey, Ashton. Christian, Ashton. Who else?
Jameen.
Jameen.
Garrett.
Hi, Garrett.
Nick S.
Hello, Nick. Good playlist, like I said. Go ahead.
Bria.
Bria.
Alyssa.
Hi, Alyssa.
Malik.
Hey, Malik.
Kayla.
Hi, Kayla.
And Chima.
Hello, Chima. I'm glad you got everything worked out, and I checked out your playlist for radio broadcasting too, and it's good. We're gonna I'm gonna have John set it up to start rotating after we're done with class. All right, so if anybody else comes in here, John, you can add to it. I think we've got a pretty full house right now, right?
Yeah.
All right, so back to intercultural communication and the importance of it. And, you know, again, just to backtrack a little bit about it, it doesn't only mean global, like, inter-country communication. You know, you go for a trip to Portugal, and so you have intercultural communication difficulties because you don't speak Portuguese, or you don't understand the culture, or they don't quite get you, those kinds of things. It also, intercultural communication issues can develop between, you know, gender communication is a whole other topic of discussion, but there's something to be said about maleness and femaleness being a kind of a subculture too. But leaving that aside, thinking about if you're from the South and you have a really good friend who's from the North, if you're all American but one person is an African American and the other is a Mexican American, chances are both families had different micro subcultures going on, right? Different ways of doing things, approaching problems, talking to each other, showing love, greeting each other, all these different intercultural differences. And one of the other things that I think it's important to keep in the front of our minds as we're going through intercultural communication is to avoid things like xeno and ethnocentric thinking, where we feel like somebody has to be the right or the better of all of these. There is no right and there is no better. It's all what's good for that region, those people, you as an individual. So important to think about that. And we touched base on collectivism versus individualism and discussed that there are positives and negatives to both cultures, that really all cultures fall into those two categories to one degree or another. Some cultures may be more individualistic than others, some cultures may be more collectivist than others, but they either fall into one of those two categories. The United States is considered individualistic, and some of the ethics and values of an individualistic culture are to be self-reliant, to look after you and yours first, to not depend on others outside of your immediate family. Again, the idea of self-sufficiency, being able to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, to forge ahead through difficulties. And hard work is a really big ethic in individualistic societies and individualistic cultures. Not that work isn't an ethic in collectivist cultures either, but there's a different intensity to it, a different emphasis, right? Work and production isn't the most important thing. The well-being of everybody is the most important thing in a collectivist society. In an individualistic society, if someone in your family does something outrageous, they could maybe embarrass your family, but they don't bring shame to their community or the group as a whole in the same way that a collectivist culture sees those sorts of behaviors. If somebody is acting out or acting out of the norm, doing something that's shameful or embarrassing, it affects everybody. Everybody's embarrassed by them, for them. It's a reflection on the group as a whole. And while you see that in even individualistic families, sometimes it's a greater extent in collectivist cultures. So in a collectivist society, your feelings about something are not the most important thing. What everybody feels about it is the most important thing, the overall consensus. And what really is in the best interest of the group and society, those are the values. So you as an individual maybe have to swallow your uniqueness. It's better in a collectivist culture to not be so stand out sometimes. You're seen as odd or too different. And so that's a negative, but the positives are also really important. People approach each other in different ways. There's a story about two families that live in an apartment building. One is in New York City and the other one is in Tokyo. So they live next door to neighbors whose one of their children plays the piano and is practicing diligently. And this is apartment life and the walls are thin. And apparently both the New York City, and this is a story, it's not like a real story, it's just sort of an example story. It's a fable, it's a tale. The fables of intercultural communication. So both families live next door to other families where someone's learning to play the piano. And both people who are learning to play the piano like to do it at 2 o'clock in the morning. So the neighbor from New York City sees the piano playing, the mother of the piano player the next morning and says, "What the heck's wrong with you? Your kid's up at 2 o'clock in the morning playing the piano. I'm trying to sleep." Like, woke our whole family up. I mean, could they maybe pick a different time to do this? And the mother either gets very defensive and says, "This is the United States of America, and if my kid wants to play the piano at 1 o'clock in the morning and it's okay with us, tough crap on you." And then a fight ensues. Or, maybe the neighbor in New York City says, "Oh, I'm really sorry about that. We'll try to keep it down just to keep the peace," right? It's individualistic society right there. Now you turn to Tokyo where the same scenario is going on, And the next morning, the two neighbors come out, the mother of the piano player and the neighbor being kept up all night. And the neighbor kept up all night says to the mother, "Your son is getting so good at playing the piano. I can't believe his improvement." And the mother smiles and nods her head. "Oh, thank you very much." And is like, it's so interesting to hear it at 2 o'clock in the morning. It lends a whole different feeling to the evening. And then the mother gets it. Like, her child's disturbed her neighbor. And because it's been put in such a soft way, buffeted with a compliment, everybody thinks a lot about how other people are going to take things in a collectivist society. Things are softened up, the communication's softened up a lot, it's fuzzied up. And so you look even at a country like the United States that's individualistic overall, there are still regions that are more collectivist, right? That have these more collectivist sensibilities. Small towns, rural areas, tend to be this way. And so for someone like me coming from New York City and living here in a rural area, one of the things that's been tough is softening up my communication, because to me that seems indirect and disingenuous, maybe, when you buffet stuff with friendly, soft things just to give some bad news. Or it seems like a lot of effort, but in this region, how you make somebody else feel in that moment and keeping their feelings in mind, and everybody kind of getting along about whatever the issue is more important than speaking your piece or saying what you have to say. So both sides, both ends of the stick have value and worth, and neither one is really better than the other. But again, that one assignment that you have on Moodle speaks to this. In these times, in the times of like a coronavirus or another catastrophe that could be happening, would you rather be in a collectivist society where everyone's looking out for each other and doing what's in the best interest of the whole community? Or would you rather be in an individualistic society where people are surviving by the sheer will and determination of their individualistic spirits and nature? So just, that's pretty much what, and both ways, both approaches have value and merit, right? Okay, so since my internet's not wanting to work really great on my computer, but our stream's working well still, right?
Yeah.
Alright. Let's see if I can't get my notes back up from the PowerPoint. No, that wouldn't be it. I really was prepared for all this, you guys. You wouldn't believe it. I had all my notes up and things were good, and then things went bad really quick. as they have a habit of doing sometimes. Things can go bad really quickly. Alright, there we go. Anybody else come in that thinks they did not get recognized for attendance, please speak up now while I'm loading this PowerPoint. I'm not even going to think that my laptop or anything is going to go wrong, because I just won't allow that. Not even going to think it. Alright. I am in the right place. We already went through that. Where we left off the other day was to talk about the state of diversity and what the complexion of the United States might look like in 20 years. And so there's an estimation, or, a guess, a statistical guess that in the United States it's going to become more pluralistic, meaning that no one group is dominant in the country. There's no majority. There's everybody, pretty much the same amount of people. By 2043 in the United States will be a majority-minority country. That is, there will be no single racial or ethnic majority among its people. And this had some people upset in the world, thinking that white culture was being lost or diminished or minimized or taken over, even, is some of the fears and the feelings around all of that. The other day, though, I also heard another take on this, and that is that when the last census came around, more and more people were checking for their racial background, white, and also another box, like maybe Native American or Latino, or maybe they're mixed race, right? Maybe they just have a very small amount of Native American blood, but they wanted to have it counted. So whenever there is a situation where people are self-reporting about themselves, the data is maybe a little bit not as awesomely reliable. That's why while the census is going on, as the results come in, there are census people that go out and verify. They spot verify. They don't go to every house, but to verify the results as much as possible. So, in other words, what that study was saying is that there may have been an over-reporting during that time of other than white identity. And so, but who knows? And honestly, who cares? Who cares? Whether or not the majority group is white or black or purple or Jewish or Hindi, like, as long as they have the best interest of the country and each other, no matter what our ethnic background is, it just shouldn't matter. So, and maybe it'll matter less and less. So, we're going to pick up now talking about things that get in the way of good intercultural communication, and one of those things is stereotyping. There's another assignment on Moodle about stereotyping I want you guys to do, please. It won't take you long, it's important though. I want you to be thinking about the idea of stereotyping and what goes on. Again, it's a natural function of our brains. Labeling is as well. That's the next thing in the list of things not to do in intercultural communication, but this is difficult. It's something we have to think actively about a lot of times, because our brains want to organize and classify things, and that involves picking out obvious general traits about groups of people and organizing them into those categories, and it involves labeling them as well. So again, it's a practice that we have to rise above a little bit and not make determinations about other people because of. And the other sticky widget with all of this is when you first meet another person, your first impression of them is usually the one that sticks. So if your first impression of them is laden down with stereotyping and labeling, you're not going to get to know them in a true and authentic way. You're always going to be seeing them through the lens of the stereotype and the label, even if you try to work past it. So it's really good to work on these things now for yourself, so that you can catch yourself when you meet a new person starting to stereotype in your head and self-correct. Self-awareness is everything. If you're self-aware about the things that you do, you have a chance of being able to stop doing it and do things in a better way. Prejudice is the next thing. Discrimination is after that, and chauvinism comes after that, and then ethnocentrism is finally the last thing on their list, and I would add xenocentrism too. So they say that stereotyping, broadly characterizing people or groups often inaccurately. Example, Asians are good at math, or women are more emotional than men, right? And then labeling, using names to stereotype individuals and groups. Labeling can often become a self-fulfilling prophecy because words can make things real. Words make things real. Communication is what creates everything. So if you're labeling people as a dumb jock or a nerd or a mean girl, you're not just organizing them, you're helping them to see themselves that way too, and kind of perpetuating the very behavior maybe you don't want from them. So think about that too, right? Your concept of who they are helps to fulfill their face the way that they see themselves too. So when they're in your presence, you're probably going to get more of the nerd or the dumb jock or the mean girl. Anyway, you know, those kinds of labels aren't necessarily helpful. Next thing is prejudice and discrimination. So prejudice and discrimination are two types, and they're often, all right, so they're two, I'll start over again. I can do that. This is my dang video. Okay, starting over. Prejudice and discrimination are two other obstacles to successful intercultural communication, and the two concepts are often confused. Prejudice for discrimination and discrimination for prejudice. Well, you can't have discrimination without prejudice, but here we go. Prejudice is a negative attitude towards a culture or a group based on little or no experience, while discrimination is the covert action one takes to exclude, avoid, or distance themselves from other groups. Prejudice is an attitude, and discrimination is a behavior or an action, right? So you have to have the attitude of prejudice to even think about being discriminatory. And so the two do go together, but they are separate meanings, right? They have they evoke different meaning. Prejudice, again, it's an attitude that people learn, and discrimination is a practice because of that learned attitude. Clear as mud? Let's see the next slide. Chauvinism and ethnocentrism. So chauvinism is when people believe themselves to be superior to others, and anyone can be chauvinistic. It's not just for men. Women are also at times chauvinistic too, looking their nose down on men, or feeling like men screw things up all the time, or any of those kinds of things that women say to each other behind men's backs, or sometimes right in front of them. And you can be well-educated person and be a chauvinist that way, looking down your nose at people who didn't go on to further education or have a job that's very service-oriented. So there's economic chauvinism, like culture and class status chauvinism, feeling like the economic group that you belong to, the socioeconomic group, is more valuable and important and better than the people below them. So that's chauvinism, right? And that never helps. A feeling of superiority when you're trying to communicate or interact with somebody from another culture is not going to get you far. You're not going to have a successful interaction or a good relationship with them. So, again, if you feel like you came from the country and rural life is more pure and natural and authentic and real, and people are more down to earth and down home there, while city people are superficial and kind of mean-spirited and self-centered, like that's you being a chauvinist about the region that you grew up in over the place or that people from the city come from. Ethnocentrism, this leads into that, is a form of cultural exclusion. Ethno indicates ethnicity, race, or culture, and centrism refers to being at the center of something. So ethnocentrism then is the belief that one's own culture lies at the center of everything and is superior. It's a superior culture, better than other cultures. No culture is innately better than others, though, right? But so Americans are pretty good at doing this. We see our culture as the center of the universe, and all the other countries in the world just sort of satellite revolving around us like we're the sun, and their culture's fine, but ours is really the best, and it's the one that you all want to copy anyway. That's why you watch our movies and sing our songs and like our fashion, right? And so obviously American culture, media products, fashion, all that stuff is superior to other cultures because why would everybody, why is it then that everybody wants to copy us? Well, that's not right, right? That's a skewed way of seeing the world and your place in it. Just because my next door neighbors get like a cool backyard patio set and I get the same one doesn't mean I want to go live in their house and act like them. I'm just saying, I may like what they have, but I still want to keep my family, my lifestyle, my culture. My little microcosm culture here is getting smaller and smaller every day with quarantine time. But that's fine. Getting through, right, kids? We're getting through. Anyway, so that's that. And then social identity theory is the identity negotiation theory is part of this too. All right, so here's some theory stuff. Most of us feel a preference for people of our own group. Most of us do. Some don't, though. You know, some people really are drawn to the exotic and the different. But for the most part, we search, as a species, we seek out belonging and we search for people and things that comfort us and make us feel connected and that we belong to them, that they're like us. We look for sameness in many things. So this, again, is sort of a natural function that we have, the way that we're kind of hardwired. Those with whom we identify over people in an out-group are the other ones, right? They're the out-group and we are the in-group. So I hope I can get this to work. Please keep your fingers crossed because I have this really cool video that I want you guys to watch about in-groups and out-groups for intercultural communication. If I can't get it to work, I'll post it onto Moodle when things finally do start to work for me again. But let me just see if I can find this because it really was good. So the out-group is the others and the in-group is the group that you belong to, and we treat people a certain way because we either view them as in or out. A lot of sociologists say that the reason that there wasn't so much more of an outcry over families being separated at the border and little children being taken away from their mothers and their families and separated like that is because we were able to, or many people were able to see them as others, as outsiders, the out group. So let me just see if I can find this. Please work. I asked for very little during this time of quarantine and hardship. Yeah, didn't work at all. I'm gonna have to post it. Okay. Just everything's lagging so bad that I'm having a hard time getting things to respond to me the way that I'd like them to. Like just getting the cursor to go where it's supposed to go. There's so much lag to everything right now. It's annoying, kids, but I know you're dealing with a lot of this stuff too in your own lives and probably not always having the easiest time getting your technology to work so that you can attend class and stuff. Alright, so here's it right here. Ethics defined in groups and out groups. Just a couple of minutes long.
In-group, out-group. An in-group is a group of people who identify with each other based on a variety of factors, including gender, race, religion, or geography. Our tendency to distinguish between in-group and out-group members has moral implications. People may harm those whom they perceive to be in an out-group in ways they would not harm in-group members. For example, one study showed that when soccer fans viewed fans of their own team being harmed, they felt empathy. But when they viewed fans of a rival team being similarly harmed, they felt pleasure. Likewise, people tend to make different moral judgments based on in-group and out-group distinctions. When someone in our in-group misbehaves, the natural reaction is often to dismiss the behavior as no big deal. But when someone in our out-group does the same thing, we will tend to judge the behavior much more harshly. Indeed, when automatic in-group and out-group distinctions replace conscious and thoughtful reflection, we are more likely to harm one another and behave unethically.
That's disappointing. But it's true, right? We overlook and can look past a lot of things when they happen to people that we don't see as the same as us or as important as us. There was something else here I thought I wanted you to see too. So, group identity, in-group and out-group. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at this too rather than read it on the PowerPoint. This will be more fun.
George Abbott School in Guildford, Surrey, has nearly 2,000 pupils who all live within 10 miles of here and are from mostly similar backgrounds. Like all school children, they're divided into groups for lessons, but come break time, they divide themselves.
If you just look across the playground, you'll see that everyone pretty much looks the same. They're all wearing the same uniform, they're the same age, they all have the same accents, they're all the same colour. There's nothing much to distinguish them. So one of the things that's really important to them is to make some differences, to give themselves a sense of being distinctive. And the way they do that is to join different groups and to mark out very important but small differences between each of the groups.
We've been named as the Indie Girls, the four of us. We all wear the same stuff, we're into the same music. There's another group of girls, another large group of girls who are very well recognised, very well known, called the Tracys or the Charts.
People call us like the Charts girls, but I don't know, it's because we like to make them to look after.
We're not subtle, are we?
If you wear socks, you have to
roll them
down.
And your skirt's got to be, like, invited to me, whatever, skin colour tight.
Shirt in at the front, out the back.
Yeah, and then it comes out a little bit at the back. No jumpers unless you're absolutely freezing, otherwise, because that's what the indie chicks do.
Group of boys in the corner, which we call the grungers, all wear baggy clothes and reputation of being dirty.
The grungers are more like into snowboarding and skateboarding and stuff, like extreme sports, and so kind of more cutting edge.
Up in the cages, where they play football, is another group of boys called the Garys, who are like the opposite to the grungers.
All the girls hang out here and they hang out down there. It's sort of like our place and that's theirs.
The grungers won't go anywhere near the Garys because it makes them look as if they like football and they like to wear like gold chains and all that lot. And it's the same way around, the Garys wouldn't want to be near the grungers because it makes them look as if they smell.
You don't smell.
What's this?
13 is a really important age when children are really beginning to figure out who they're going to be as adults. They're figuring out, what should I wear? What should I listen to? What should I be interested in? How should I behave? They're moving from that comfortable time of childhood when they could just do what all the children do to now a kind of transitional period, and there's a lot of uncertainty around for them.
There's even more uncertainty if you're someone like Anna, who's what the rest of the playground call a loner, someone who's not part of a group.
I'm independent and everything, but I do sometimes feel that it would be nice to be in a group, to have somebody else always there to protect you, to stand up for you. I get get names called at me, but it doesn't really bother me that much because if they feel that they have to pick on me because I'm not like them, then it's their own problem.
Anna's proud of her independence and ability to mix, but without realising it, even she's part of a group of loners.
Sometimes these groups are real groups, like these ones out here, like the grunges, for example, and they all sit together and they do everything together. Other times they can be groups that are more kind of in our heads. So some of the people out here, for example, might be treated as loners or counted as loners, but you'll find that they themselves have connections that give them that sense of security, the sense that they know what they're doing the right kind of thing.
The loners have bonded just like the grunges, the Garys, the indies and the tarts, and they display all the hallmarks of group mentality, like loyalty and competition. Anna even says it herself.
They're really nice people and everything, and they've got such nice personalities, it can actually be better than some of the people in groups.
So instinctive and subconscious is this need to belong, that we're loyal to groups without realising it, and they change our behaviour in powerful ways.
And that's true. They do. This is where you get peer pressure and group mentality. This is why things like, mob behavior happens. It's a further extension of that kind of thinking. When we are more loyal to the group and the group mindset than we are to our own common sense, right? Or our own independent will and thought. So, we all go through stuff like that in high school, junior high, and then there's even a further extension of it as you become an adult, right? So you look at junior high and high school and who were the jocks and the cheerleaders and, the athletes and what you guys call them, and who are kind of like the stoners who were off smoking cigarettes and getting high behind the gym, or who are the kids that worked on their cars all the time and did that sort of thing. Here in rural America, who are the farm kids, who are the ones that are into 4-H and animal husbandry and all that sort of thing. That's another belonging group that you would find in a high school in this area. It hasn't changed. When I was young and in high school myself, there were groups. There were the jocks and the greasers, who were the ones that worked on their cars and liked to wear leather jackets and think that they were kind of throwbacks to the 1950s. We called them straight kids. They were all into school and being involved in things, and we had nerds. So there was that group, and then there were the freaks, and they were like the hippies, the little junior hippies that, and so all these adults grew up to be something too, to belong to something, and now we like to call them Democrats and Republicans or something, but you belong to the Kiwanis Club, you join another kind of a civic organization, you belong to a church. Those kinds of things are creating groups and in-groups into our adulthood that we stick with. So just a quick run back to my notes here and make sure that I have covered the things I think are important for you to know from this chapter. We are going to be moving into chapter 9 for next week, so I want you to be paying attention to that. Okay, what happened again to my notes? This is not good. Just having one of those special days. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's God's way of telling me I'm done with talking about intercultural communication. So, not totally though, stay right where you are. So, very important to know and practice better intercultural communication for understanding, not just within, business relationships that you may be having in your adult careers, doing whatever it is that you end up doing in your life, not just for successful business transactions, but for successful exchanges with people and friends and coworkers that you're going to end up having, or that you have right now, who are from very different backgrounds from you. The world is a smaller and smaller place, and it used to be not so awkward or uncomfortable for you to not necessarily have tolerance or understanding for other people when we didn't move around so much and we stuck in our little villages and our small towns, and we weren't as mobile a species as we are now. Now, a journey that used to take maybe a month on a ship, it takes a few hours on an airplane, right, to go from maybe the west coast of the United States to Hawaii, or to go from the East Coast to Europe, or travel to Africa. We are much more mobile people, and because we come in contact with people from different backgrounds on a regular basis. Even people in small towns anymore, you're gonna run into people who come from very different backgrounds. So having an understanding about tolerance and avoiding things like xenocentric and ethnocentric thinking about, that our culture or the culture that you were raised in, or even the family that you were raised in, is the only right way to do something. And having not the right kind of respect for how other people are raised, and that there is no right or wrong way. It's just the way that people are. It's the way sometimes cultures and systems develop based on the geography that they're in. Sometimes it's based on the climate and the weather that they have to deal with within that geography. So cultures and systems of society develop for different reasons, from different spiritual perspectives, from different survival needs, right? Just for survival of, the people living in that region. And we don't get to judge that and decide if it's right or wrong. So that's probably the most important thing that you need to know about intercultural communication. So I'm going to shut down my computer and restart it again, and hope that I can get attendance put in, and then I will try to make sure that the links that I wanted to show you guys today are posted on Moodle. Make sure you get your assignments finished, and if you have an assignment coming that's past due, please get that done as soon as possible. And does anybody have any questions before we break up class today and I see you again on Monday? Okay then, well, everybody stay safe and be kind to each other, and I will talk to you again on Monday. Let me know if you need anything. Email me. I'll be checking my email. Bye.